Hey there, y'all, and welcome to the kitchen. Today, I'm showing you how to do a one-pan plan that is a Southern-style budget-friendly meal. I have in front of me about 3 pounds of chicken legs. We're going to take these, we're going to do a delicious savory marinade on those. Then we're going to put in our pan a delicious Cajun rice. We're going to put our chicken on top of our rice, throw it in the oven, and it's all going to bake together at the same time. It'll come out and it'll be a delicious one-pan meal that leaves cleanup a breeze. However, we do start our chicken in the base of that one pan because we're going to build flavor all along the way. So first thing I want to do is I want to get my seasonings and all of my marinade together in my Ziploc bag with my chicken so that we can have that marinade process already going before we do anything else. So, like I said, this is about 3 pounds of chicken legs here. It is an incredibly affordable thing to find in the grocery store. You can always find, I'm going to grab a pair of tongs. You can always find dark meat bone-in chicken for an amazing price in your grocery store compared to a lot of the other options. Anytime you're getting something that's a little bit more processed by your butcher department, like your boneless, skinless chicken breasts, you're going to pay a premium for that. So in this case, you'll see people that have old school Southern recipes do those bone-in dark pieces of meat because you know what? A lot of these are built around watching a budget. So these chicken legs throw me straight back to my childhood. I don't know about y'all, but there was these church meals that we would have, these elderly ladies that would always make this delicious chicken on Wednesday nights, and this flavor is exactly that for me. So I'm going to get my seasoning on my chicken. We're going to go ahead and get some Cajun seasoning in our chicken so we can mirror the flavor of what's going in our rice later. I'm not going to overdo this though because we have a little bit more seasoning going into our chicken in just a second. So for this, I'm going to start for our 8 chicken legs, 3 pounds of chicken. I'm going to go in with about a tablespoon of Cajun, or you can use Creole seasoning blend. You already get a lot of herby notes and some paprika and garlic in here. So this is a really good blend to have on hand if you want a lot of flavor with one punch. And of course, being down south, we actually do a lot of blackened fish and things like that. And that's exactly what I use for that. Now I'm going to go in with a teaspoon of dried thyme. I'm going to up that herby note just a little bit. And if you have fresh, by all means use it. Just remember there is a rule of thumb. Fresh is always less potent than dried, so use more fresh than dried if you're doing that. So I've got about a teaspoon of that, and I'm going to rub it between the palm of my hand and my fingers just to wake up the flavor of that dried herb that's been in that jar. That's going to assist in opening up the flavor of that. And then I'm going to get in an additional teaspoon of garlic powder. And you know, I don't measure anything. If I do measure, I measure it in the palm of my hand. And so about half of the palm of my hand is a teaspoon. All of this palm of my hand, cupped like this, tablespoon. So we're going to go in with a teaspoon more of garlic. If we had not used that Cajun seasoning, I'd have used a lot more than that. And now we've got a little bit of wet going in, some wet marinade. I'm going to go in with 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire. The most challenging word in all of cooking is Worcestershire. But if you're not thinking about it, it's one of those things you really have to walk through. Okay, then I'm going to go in with 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. And this does not make this seem Asian-y. It is just a savory flavor. That's what the Worcestershire and the soy sauce. See, I said it again. Worcestershire. I knocked it down. Okay. The Worcestershire and the soy sauce both add a really good savory flavor. And now to give a little tang and help the marinade absorb into the chicken quickly, I'm going to add a tablespoon of white wine vinegar. You can use white vinegar or red wine vinegar here, just whatever you have on hand. All right. Now, I'm going to give this a good mix inside this bag, and it's actually going to help me get all of that marinade onto all of the chicken because we did it in this bag. anytime you're doing it in a bowl or something like that, you just have to mix and mix and mix and mix. This really gets you in contact with your chicken and gets that marinade in there really well. Okay, while this was happening, I had my oven beginning to preheat at 400 degrees. This is going to be something that we cook at the beginning covered, and then we take the lid off at the end just for the last few minutes. So we're going to go ahead and get it started on the stovetop, move it down into the oven, and we're going to be building everything in the same pan. So I'm going to get over there and start building our flavors in the pan, and I'll see you right back in a second. Okay, y'all, it's time to get our chicken into our pan. So we're going to start by searing our chicken in the pan that the entire meal is going to get built in. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the bottom of my pan before we sear our chicken off. Now we've got chicken legs and they have skin on them and they have a reasonable amount of fat. So I'm just going to get a little bit, about a tablespoon of avocado oil in here is all I need. You can use olive oil or whatever you have on hand. And I want this to be really hot when my chicken goes in because we want it to sear and it's going to get browned on the outside, and then we're going to take it out and continue to build the flavor in our pan. After everything's in the pan, we're going to put our chicken right back on top and slide this guy in the oven. So like I said, it's all going to happen here. The flavor staying in the same pan is actually going to assist you in this meal tasting better than it would if you did it separately. So making it more difficult for yourself doesn't make it any better just because it seems more complicated. Building flavor is actually a key to having really great food. Another thing that we say in the cooking world is brown food tastes good. So what you really are going for here is searing on the outside. So we have that browning and it's going to finish cooking on the inside and get nice and juicy while it's in the oven. When you have the browning on the outside, that really does help lock in the juices, and that will make you have a more flavorful and juicier chicken in the end. So just a little cooking one-on-one on why you want brown seared meat as opposed to just a little bit of color. So I'm going to get all of these in here, and what I'm really just trying to do is I'm getting a good bit of color on both sides. You don't want them too terribly close together, but I think they're all going to fit in here just fine. You just have to arrange them like you would anything else. That's the good thing about chicken legs. They're made to be beside each other just because of their shape. Big end next to small end. 3 more. And you'll smell as soon as this hits the heat what I mean by savory chicken. This marinade smells just absolutely like savory heaven. And that thyme in there is a big part of that. All right, last one. Let's get you moved over, buddy, so you can share your spot. All right, everybody's in there. Everybody has its spot. We're just going to let it do its thing on the first side. We're going to flip it over, get it nice and brown on the second side. And then, like I said, we're just going to take it out and we're going to continue building our dish and our flavor base for our rice in this dish. Also, I wanted to tell you, I've got this garbage bowl over here. If you see me putting things to the side, this saves me so many trips to the trash can. That's just something over the years I've always done. That's a really good tip if you're new in the kitchen. All right, I'm going to get all this seared off. And I think maybe our first one might be done. So let's check it really quickly. I've got it on pretty high heat, so we don't want our outside to burn before we get it turned over. Okay, it needs about 30 more seconds. You'd be shocked. I teach teenagers how to cook in Mama Whitten's Kitchen online cooking school every single week. And you would be shocked the kind of things that they are brave enough to do. When I was a new cook and I was just out of the gate, things like bone-in meat scared me half to death. But these kids, they're making chicken wings. They're doing all that kind of stuff, and they are killing it. I have one of my students send me this picture of like this beautiful shrimp dish that she made. And she made it up. Like, she came up with the recipe and all this, and she showed it to me, and she goes, I don't know what this is called, but I made it up, and it's delicious. And I was like, you know what? You just wrote a recipe. So congratulations. And she had this sweet light bulb moment. She was like, oh, I just wrote a recipe. It was really, I love things like that. It was a really sweet moment to see her realize her skill in the kitchen. I always put the link to Mama Whitten's kitchen below in case anybody has teenagers that would like cooking lessons. I have kids from all over the country that join me for my online classes every week, and I absolutely love it. Okay, so our first side has some brown on it. I'm showing you what you want to look for. This is the kind of crust that you want. Anytime that you have less brown than that, you're not quite ready to flip it. And if it feels like it's going too quickly, feel free to turn your heat down to medium and just be a little bit patient. The second side will always go faster than the first side. In just a second, we're going to put some vegetables down in here for the base flavor for our rice. And that's going to actually get some liquid into our pan, and all of the brown from this chicken is going to kind of come up off the bottom of the pan and become flavor that helps our whole dish be absolutely delicious. All right, I'm going to give that second side about 30 seconds. We're going to pull it off, and then I'm going to get the next few ingredients in my pan. We actually are making this with some smoked sausage and the Holy Trinity. So in Cajun cooking, that's onion, bell pepper, and celery. I always have garlic on hand, and there's not anything that I don't make with garlic in it. So those are the main flavor bases for our rice itself. Smoked sausage actually has a lot of flavor that it's not just going to be a protein in the dish. It's going to really make a really good smoky base flavor into our rice. All right, let's check this first guy right here. And if you're from Alabama and if you're near a place where you can get Conecuh sausage, that's what I recommend. But any smoked sausage will do. And it's about, I think it's about a good cup and a half cup of smoked sausage. Okay, out with our chicken legs. And this whole method is very similar to how you would make a dish called paella, but it just stays on the stove top. It doesn't go into the oven. All right, into my dish, we're going to go in with my onions, some celery. We're going to go ahead and get a little bit of butter in here just to get a little more fat so my food has some movement and some room to groove. Okay, and now what we need to get in is our bell peppers. Now you have seen probably me use before these shortcut veggies from the freezer section. The ones that are the most used in my house and the biggest epiphany moments of any mama I share it with is the onions that you can buy in the freezer section. Saves you crying every single time. But this is about 2 cups of bell peppers, of one whole bell pepper chopped. I'm just going to use about a cup of that in here. Same amount of onion, celery, and bell pepper, just about a cup of each. My onions was 1 good medium-sized Vidalia onion. My celery was 2 celery hearts, or 1 whole celery stalk. That's what I got going on in there. And we're just going to get the heat going under these. And the moisture from these veggies is actually going to start bringing up some of the flavorful bits from the bottom of the pan. And you're really going to have that imparted into the dish. So I'm going to get a little bit of my Cajun seasoning now onto my veggies itself. I always want to build flavor as we go. Just about a teaspoon on my veggies. I'm also going to go ahead and get in my smoked sausage. So while my veggies are getting tender, my smoked sausage is going to go ahead and start to build a crust. And like I said, these are all base flavors that are going to flavor the rest of our dish. This smoked sausage is going to add some protein to this, but it's really here for the smokiness that it adds. All right. We're going to let that do its thing for just a second. And while that's happening, I'm going to grab my garlic and we're going to start getting that ready to go into our dish too. Okay, I'm going to break down my garlic real quick, but I want to show you how you do it because sometimes I have people who've never seen it done before. If you've got a whole head of garlic like this is called a bulb, and you just need to put it down. This one's a really tight one. And you put it down onto your cutting board with the palm of your hand. You're going to put some pressure, and you're just going to go in a circle to try to get it out of its little jacket, if you will. So I'm going to take my hand and just do that, and then the individual cloves start to come apart. There you go. About lost a few. Okay, here we go. So this is how it looks when it starts to come apart. It's still got a jacket on it, the individual cloves do. So to get that off, we go ahead and use our knife, and we're going to go pop it while it's laying on our side, with the palm of our hand, just like this. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic right here. I'm going to put them side by side. And then I'm going to put my knife down on them like that, and I'm just going to go pop it with the back of my hand. Like you mean it. And just like that, your garlic jacket comes off, and you've pretty much got a mostly minced piece of garlic as it is. There's not going to be much chopping required for that. So I'm going to make sure all of my papery jackets are over to the side. Give this a little bit of a mince. I'm going to pass through it just a couple of times because obviously that little pop with my hand did all the work. And that's it. That's how you easily mince garlic. Easy peasy. If you are using the jarred garlic, you'll need it about a tablespoon for the 2 cloves that I just put in there. Okay, let's stir this around. It's starting to get some good color. My onions need to be translucent. That means they're starting to be like they're slightly see-through. My peppers need to look like they're pretty tender. And the big thing that I'm looking for is that this browning on the bottom of the pan is starting to come up. So I'm going to use the back of my spoon, and I'm just going to start scraping very gently and getting some of this brown up. Now, the next thing that we need to do is add in the rest of our flavors and our rice. So what I'm going to do now is I want to get a little toasting on our rice. So I'm going to put in another few tablespoons of butter. And by few, I mean at least 3 up to 4. You do you. I'm not going to scold you for too much butter. Not in this house. And then we're going to go ahead and get some more seasonings in here. Now for this, I want a little bit more garlic powder. Not a lot, just a teaspoon here. Remember, rice is a blank canvas. And garlic that's minced from fresh is going to have like a background sweetness where garlic that's garlic powder is just a punch of garlic. And that's exactly what you want here. I'm going to add in a teaspoon of smoked paprika. And that's just going to add like another layer of smoky flavor. Very similar, if not exact. I always say to bacon in a jar right here. It's gold right here. I love smoked paprika. Okay, and then just to mirror the thyme in our chicken, we're going to put another half teaspoon of thyme leaves in here. And then we're going to build in a little bit more flavor with some chicken bouillon. Now, chicken bouillon is just a really, really good, savory, deep, roasted chicken flavor. It is absolutely something I always have in my fridge, and I'll show you what it looks like. You can get it in the powder form, but I like to use it in the jar where I can control and taste and really see what I'm getting. So this is what I use. All right, get that in there. And then I'm going to just stir this up ever so slightly, and then we're going to get our rice in here. My heat is actually on about medium right now. So you want a good little sizzle, but you don't want it to be incredibly high because you don't want your veggies and your sausage to burn. So I'm going to get out my measuring cup. And this measuring cup is actually a cup, believe it or not. I have checked. We got these cups when we got married, so it's a coffee cup or a teacup, but it's a measuring cup in my house. Anything can be a measuring cup in my house. I always say if you've got a mason jar, you've got a measuring cup. Okay, so 2 cups of rice going in. And I'm just going to let the rice toast just a little bit here before we add anything else in. So 2 cups of rice. and we're going to end up adding 4 cups of stock. The great thing about using the chicken in the same dish as the rest of your rice and meat mixture is the juices from the chicken as it's cooking are really going to infuse the stock that we're using to cook the rice in. It's just like you're never wasting flavor. All right, everybody stay in the pan. You really want to go ahead and stir all of the rice into all of your mixture. Every piece you want it to be coated in the fat from the butter and the smoked sausage. Okay, that looks amazing. Yum. And now, like I told you a little while ago, our oven is preheated to 400 degrees. So once I get my chicken and my rice all nestled back into this dish, we're going to cover it and we're going to put it into the oven. So we're going to get some stock. This doesn't take too long in the toasting process. You just want to give it a couple of good minutes. Really stir it around while it's going. You don't want it to sit on one spot for too long. I'm going to mix it around, scrub the bottom, and then we're going to start introducing in some liquids. Okay. 2-to-1 ratio is what you work with when you are making rice. Always, always cover it to let it cook completely through. Those are non-negotiables in the rice department, unless you're making risotto, and that's a different conversation. So we did 2 cups of rice. I'm going to do 4 cups of this liquid. 1. And always, if I have chicken stock in the fridge or freezer, we're going to use it. But it is never something that I am without in my pantry. So that's just a tip. If you are stocking your pantry to be prepared for any kind of thing, any busy weeknight, any dinner, any dish, always keep stock on hand. There's just a few go-to things that I never, ever skip on having, and stock is one of them. Also the chicken bouillon, because if something happens and you're out of stock, you're going to want to have a backup plan. Okay, so I'm just getting my liquid stirred in. Again, one more scrape on the bottom to make sure all of my brown bits have been released and they're up in here. And you may have noticed that I haven't put pepper in this yet. That Cajun seasoning has a good hit of pepper in it. You want to make sure you're testing and not making this too spicy for whoever you're serving. So in my case, that Cajun seasoning has enough kick to where that's all we need. So I'm going to nestle my chicken back in here. And after we do that, we're going to put our lid on because it's going to need to be to where our heat is trapped inside of our pan to finish this cooking process. The rice needs to have the heat trapped to steam the way that it's supposed to. And that's why we got color on our chicken to begin with too. Not only to build flavor in the bottom of our pan, but because you do want that crust on your chicken. And it was necessary to get it at the beginning to do that. Okay, everybody is in the pool or the pot, whatever, however you want to say it. Let's nestle this guy in one more time. And just because I have lived and I have learned and I have done this a few thousand times, I'm going to put a sheet pan underneath my pan just in case anything decides to boil over. I don't anticipate that, but better safe than sorry. So I'm going to put a lid on this, turn my heat off, and it's going to go into my oven for about 25 minutes, and then I'm going to take the lid off, and we are going to finish it for about 5 more minutes with the lid off, and it will be absolutely perfect. Okay, y'all, we're back, and it is time to take our delicious chicken legs with our Cajun rice out of the oven. I've chopped some green onions here. I love to finish this with green onions. It just adds a pop of flavor and a beautiful hit of green at the end. So I'm going to get out my chicken. We went for about 25 minutes with the lid on, and then about 5 minutes ago, I took the lid off, and it looks absolutely amazing. I'm going to go ahead and get my green onions over the top. This is one my students are absolutely going to love. Anytime I teach y'all something, my students in Mama Whitten's kitchen also get this sent straight to them. So I'll put the link for that in the description like I always do. So if you have a child that would benefit from cooking classes with me, you'll know where to find me. Okay, so first thing I want to do is grab a little bit of chicken off the top. Get me one of these yummy chicken legs out of here. And these are crispy on the top, but juicy underneath because they have had a delicious searing to start. This looks amazing. And then our rice with our sausage. Yum. A little extra green onion. And it's going to be 1,000,000 degrees. So I'm going to have to wait on the chicken to taste. But I think I can blow my rice and get it to where it's tasteable without burning my mouth too much. I hope you've enjoyed spending today with me. It's so savory and so delicious. Try this one, and happy cooking, y'all. See you next time.